Yes, students, today we will continue the chapter Footprints Without Feet. Before we proceed, let's have a quick recap of this chapter. Two boys on a London street, we were surprised to see fresh muddy footprints of bare feet without finding who was making them. These footprints had been made by Griffin, an eccentric scientist who had discovered how to make his body transparent. To get away after he had burnt his landlord's house down, he had to remove his clothes so that he became invisible. Griffin entered unseen into a big store to get warm. When the store closed at night, he put on new clothes, consumed meat and coffee from the restaurant, and went to sleep on a pile of quilts. He overslept and was seen by the shop assistants in the morning. He again took off his clothes to escape them. Then he entered a theatrical company and wore bandages on his face, dark glasses, a false nose, a bushy side whiskers. He robbed the shopkeeper of his money and escaped to Iping village by train to avoid being caught. He rented two rooms at an inn in the village. He explained to Mrs. Hall, its owner, that he had an accident and did not want to be disturbed. Soon his money finished, so he robbed a clergyman's house by using his invisibility. Yes, students, you have learned that how the two boys they were surprised to notice the footprints of a man who was not visible. This man was none other than Griffin, who was an eccentric scientist. He had already burnt his landlord's house to take revenge. Then he went to a big London store where he managed to get new clothes, meat, coffee from the restaurant, and then went to sleep. But there was a big mistake on his part that he did not wake up early in the morning before the assistants of the shop came. That's why he has been chased by them. To get away from there, from the reach of those assistants, he entered a theatrical company where he managed to have some bandages to cover his face, a dark glass, false nose, bushy side whiskers, so that he could cover the upper part of his shoulder. Then he managed to escape to Iping village, where he had already booked two rooms. He rented two rooms at an inn. Inn is the guest room in the village, and he explained to the owner of that inn that he had an accident and did not want to be disturbed. Soon his money finished, and so he robbed a clergyman's house by using his invisibility. This is what that you have already read. Now we will continue our chapter. Then, to his amazement, he realized that the room appeared to be empty. He and his wife looked under their desk and behind the curtains and even up the chimney. There wasn't a sign of anybody, yet the desk had been opened and the housekeeping money was missing. Extraordinary affair, the clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. But it was not an extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. Yes, in this line, his, who does refer to here? His, that is the clergyman or that priest. He realized that the room, when the clergyman and his wife, they heard the noise in their study room, they left that place to check who is there in the room. But when they opened the room, it was empty. No one was there. They checked under the desk, behind the curtains, and even up the chimney. But they could not trace even a sign of anybody over there. Yet the desk had been opened. But to their astonishment, they found that the desk where they used to keep their money aside for the management of household affairs, that was missing. Extraordinary affair, the clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day, due to which the clergyman throughout the day kept saying that it was an uncommon thing, because it was unbelieving that the money has stolen but no one was there. But it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. Not only this, but next day, much more extraordinary or uncommon thing happens with the furniture of Mrs. Hall. The landlord and his wife woke up very early and they were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Landlord and his wife next day woke up early and they were really very surprised to see that the door of the scientist's room was open. Usually it was shut and locked, and he was furious if anyone entered his room. The opportunity seemed too good to be missed. Actually, what happens usually that the scientist was in the habit of keeping his door shut. He often gets angry if someone tries to enter his room. This was a golden opportunity for landlord and his wife. They do not want to miss it. They peeped, they looked quickly around the door. When they confirmed that there was nobody around, then they decided to investigate. Investigate means examine it. The bedclothes were gold, showing that the scientist must have been up for some time. When they touched the bed sheets, uh, they found that it was still cold. This proved that scientists remained over there for a while. And stranger still, the clothes and bandages that he always wore were lying about the room. And all the things that he used to wear, they were lying there in the room. All of a sudden, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff. Sniff is a sound of somebody's breathing in close to her ear. But suddenly, Mrs. Hall heard that's just like someone is standing near her and he is breathing in. A moment later, the hat on the bedpost leapt up and dashed itself into her face. But more surprising thing happened when a hat that was lying on the bedpost jumped up and hit violently at the face of the lady, Mrs. Hall. Then the bedroom chair became alive. Became alive means the movement started in the chair. The bedroom started moving, springing, moving up into the air. It charged straight at her. Springing means moving up. It started moving up. Now the chair lifted up and it attacked straight at the legs of the lady. As she and her husband turned away in terror, the extraordinary, the uncommon chair pushed them both out of the room. When they turned out in fear, immediately the chair pushed them out of the room and then appeared to slam and lock the door after them. They felt that somebody inside has locked the door with a slam. Slam means to shut the door forcefully. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysterics, mental distress. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits and that the stranger had somehow caused these to enter into her furniture. Due to mental distress, she was crying, she was shouting, and fell down the stair. She was convinced, she was under the impression that certainly the room was haunted by a spirit. Haunted means visited, and that the stranger had somehow caused these to enter into her furniture. And now she held the stranger responsible for it. She thought that it is the stranger only who had brought this spirit and enter into her furniture. My poor mother used to sit in that chair. She moaned. To think it should rise up against me now. This was the same chair that her mother used to sit. over there. She moaned. She became sad. Why she became sad? Because she think that the mother who used to sit over there, now how can she be against her? Means if it is the spirit of her mother, but mother always loves their daughters, how they can be against them? The feeling among the neighbors was that the trouble was caused by witchcraft. Witchcraft here means the black magic. When the neighbors they heard about this, they thought that this is the trouble caused by some black magic. But witchcraft or not, when news of the burglary at the clergyman's home became known, the strange scientist was strongly suspected of having had a hand in it. But when they were deciding on whether there is some witchcraft or not behind all these things, they heard a news of robbery at the priest house. The strange scientist was now strongly suspected. Everybody started suspected or doubting the scientist, the strange scientist. They thought that there is a hand of this strange scientist behind all these things. Suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready cash, though he had admitted not long before that he had no money. The village constable was secretly sent for. Their suspect their suspicions grew even stronger when 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 he put forth some ready cash. Earlier he said to Mrs. Hall that his all cash has been finished, but how it is possible that who was saying that he had no cash, and in one day now he was able to produce this cash in front of her? So the doubt turned into surety. The village constable was secretly sent for. Sent for means called. Instead of waiting for the constable, Mrs. Hall went to the scientist who had somehow mysteriously appeared from his empty bedroom. Now, instead of waiting for constable to come to arrest him, Mrs. Hall decided to go to the scientist who had somehow mysteriously, means secretly, now was visible in that empty bedroom. I want to know what you have been doing to my chair upstairs. She demanded. She demanded means she inquired. She asked a question how he managed to go upstairs and to use that chair. I want to know. She said that she is eager to know what he was doing upstairs in the chair. And I want to know how it is you came out of the empty room and how you entered a locked room. She also asked how did he manage to come out of the empty room and how did he entered a locked room. The scientist was always quick tempered. Quick tempered means easily made angry. As you know that scientists were short tempered, very easily he was made angry, and now he became furious when he heard this from that lady. He became angry. You don't understand who or what I am. Now he got angry and asked her that don't you know who am I? Okay, if you don't know, I will tell you. I will show you who am I. Suddenly he threw off bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and even nose. It took him only a minute to do this. To show her, what did he do? He put off the bandages, the whiskers, the specs, and even the false nose. It took him only a minute to do all these things. The horrified people in the bar found themselves staring at a headless man. When he did this, he was a headless man in front of the people. When all these people looked at him, they they were frightened. Mr. Jeffers, who was the constable, the constable now arrived and was quite surprised to find that he had to arrest a man without a hat. Head. Now Mr. Jeffers, the constable, arrived. he reached over there, but he was surprised to see that he had come over there to arrest a man who is without a head. But Jafar was not easily prevented from doing his duty. He was not easily ready to give up from doing his duty. If a magistrate's warrant ordered a person arrest, then that person had to be arrested with or without his head. As if an order issued by a magistrate or warrant is issued, then it is the duty of the constable to arrest that man, whether it is with head or without head. There followed a remarkable scene as the policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible as he threw off one garment and after another. Now the scene became more noticeable when the policeman was trying to catch such a man who was becoming invisible when he was throwing off his clothes one after another. Finally, a shirt flew into the air, and the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. Finally, Griffin threw his chair into the air, and the constable was struggling with someone who was not able to be seen. Some people tried to help him but found themselves to be hit by some blows that from nowhere. In the end, Jeffers was knocked, hit unconscious, fainted as he made a last attempt to hold on to unseen scientists. They were nervous, excited, cries to hold him, but this was easier said than done. Griffin had shaken himself free and no one knew where to lay hands on him. Jeffers was hit by Griffin and he became unconscious as it was his last attempt to hold the unseen scientist. The people who were standing over there, they were crying in excitement, hold him, hold him. But as you know, that it is easy to say anything, but difficult to have it accomplished. And Griffin had shaken himself free, and no one knew where to lay hands on him. Everybody did his best to hold of him, but they could not get success. In this way, Griffin was able to set him free, and nobody was there who could know how to catch him. Yes, this was all. Now your chapter is finished. I hope everybody has understood it. Thank you very much.